Hi, I'm Laurie and welcome to the Diaries of the Neurospicy Coach. I'm so excited I'm finally doing this. It's been on the cards for such a long time and it's finally happening. So I thought we'd kick stuff off with a get to know me. I always have questions on my journey to being diagnosed, was there any signs and things like that. So I thought I'd take you on the journey of how I got here. So I'll start from the very beginning. So as a child, people always ask me, was there any signs? And back then, no, I didn't think it was until I got diagnosed and everything started making sense to me. I was the girl who did get bullied. I had to move schools. Didn't really have any friends, struggled to fit in anyway. And I used to stim a lot as well in class. So I used to hum quite loudly. And my parents always put it down to the fact I had a glue year. So I'm not sure if you know what that is, but I was basically partially deaf. So they thought that the teachers like speaking to me and I couldn't hear them because I was humming so loud by stimming. They just put it down to me not actually being able to hear the teacher, but obviously now I know that isn't the case. Just growing through school, it was just a really, really hard time. Really struggled with just classes itself. I just thought I was really stupid. I just thought I was thick. I wasn't any good at exams or things like that. And I remember going in, is it year 11? Is that the last year? In my year 11 class, going for an assembly for university. And I remember everyone turned around and started laughing and someone literally shouted, "What are you doing here? You'll never get into university." And I remember it just broke my heart and I thought it's fine because I'll go to college and that's going to be a lot better for me. It was not. It was not. It was horrendous. I hated it. I dropped out of school and I think it was also because I'm such an empath as well, which also makes sense now. I actually wanted to be a social worker. And when I was learning to be one of those, I couldn't get over how some of these children were getting treated. And quite frankly, I just wanted to take all the kids home with me, which obviously you can't do. So I was thinking, okay, this is not for me. And even then, obviously going into work and things like that, never really stuck to anything. So yeah, it was just a bit of a nightmare. And it wasn't until I started becoming a coach and going self-employed, that's when I knew, right, okay, you're not okay. So I started researching about like ADHD, autism, and to be honest, autism, I feel like that was more suited to what I was struggling with rather than ADHD. So ADHD didn't actually cross my mind. And when I went for my diagnosis, originally through the NHS, they said, right, we need to test you for ADHD as well because you've shown a lot of signs of that. So I was like, cool. So it felt quite positive that I was sort of get answers and things like that. And then they said to me, it's about a 9-year waiting list. And I was like, cool, I'm going to have to wait 9 years to get, some sort of help, something, just to survive. So that's then I decided to go private. And honestly, like, I am grateful that I could save up to have that because it was life-changing, but it wasn't a life-changing in a way where people think it will be, because originally I thought, oh, it's going to change my life because I thought it was going to be different, but it wasn't. But it was life-changing in a way of, you've got your answers now, you can now research into this and sort of help yourself, because you don't have much help when you get diagnosed. I think people think they'll get this diagnosis and then boom, everything makes sense and everything, like, you survive and you could thrive and whatever, but that's not the case. You sort of have the results. For me, I had combined ADHD and obviously autism as well. And honestly, I just grieved. I just cried. I felt neglected almost. I can't, it was just a weird feeling that I felt that, oh my gosh, like, this is my life now. And in my head, I kept thinking, oh, that's going to change everything now, And I remember speaking to my therapist at the time and she was like, nothing's changed. You're the same person as you was yesterday. The only difference it is now that you can have more self-awareness and you know that the struggles you have aren't because you're stupid. It isn't because, you're weird or anything like that. It's just because your brain is different. And I'm so grateful my therapist said that, because from there, that's when things got better for me. And I was like, do you know what? I can either play the victim and be like, I'm like this because I'm ADHD, or I'm like this because I'm autistic. I decided to put into action and actually learn. And obviously, where I had the passion then of doing courses, doing loads of research into neurodivergent women, that's where I found the passion then to be like, do you know what? I really want to coach neurodivergent women, because all our lives we've not had a safe space. We've always struggled. We've struggled with schools, we've struggled with work, we've struggled with families, partners. We might never have a successful relationship, and that's something I really wanted to dig into. And I didn't want it to be physique goals, because let's be honest, an ADHD woman really struggles to adhere to things that are not suited for their brains. And especially if all these triggers are sort of happening around them and they're not identifying them as triggers, they can't then change them because they're not aware of them. So that's why I wanted to do this coaching, where it's not just a physique goal. I am literally unpicking your brain, figure out these triggers with you to bring that self-awareness. So that's how I got here with my coaching. And it means a lot to me. And the reason why it means a lot to me is because I've been on a journey to get here. I feel like I've lived 9 million lives, honestly. Like, I look back and I'm like, I didn't even recognize that person there. Like, I remember being a teenager and, just drinking on the streets and things like that. I just thought it was cool. I was doing it because everyone else was. And I look back now and I realised I was really easily led. I was a people pleaser. And I got myself in a dark space, quite frankly, because the people who I thought were friends were more of acquaintances, and my brain struggled with that, because I would do everything for these people and they wouldn't do anything for me. And I really struggled with those two things. And when I was about, I think I was about 18 maybe, it got too much for me, and I did try to take my own life. I remember taking an overdose. And I do take things quite literally as well. So I remember arguing with my parents over it. And yeah, I just thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Very impulsive, wasn't planned. And I remember it was like Easter and I was just in hospital and I just saw my family all around me. And it was only until that very moment I realised, like, what have I done? Like, what have I done? And I think that's another struggle with ADHD women. We are impulsive and sometimes it does harm us. And I was incredibly lucky that I didn't succeed at that. It's probably the only thing in the world that I'm happy that I didn't succeed in, because I'm very competitive. So that sort of was going on. I still continued to binge alcohol, and obviously it was a way of me coping in social situations as well, because social situations I just could not do. I could not do the whole eye contact, like meeting new people. I could see someone I know of or know in a shop and I would hide, because I literally could not. I could not. I would be hiding underneath the coats being like, please don't find me. So yeah, it was an extremely hard time. I did get put into counselling then. And to be honest, did it help? No. Like, the NHS are great for many things, but the counselling is not. I remember feeling like an absolute psychopath speaking to this counsellor, because I could see the judgment on his face, and I started lying to this counsellor, and I thought, well, what's the point of me coming to you, because I'm lying to you and it's not actually making me feel better, you're making me feel worse, quite frankly. And then I also, then after that, I started getting into an abusive relationship, which did take up a big part of my life, a massive part of my life. And again, I didn't see these red flags because, again, being neurodivergent, having RSD and things like that, you just find that any sort of love, you feel like it's enough, when in fact, it's really not. It took everything away from me, every ounce of confidence I had. I had no self-love, no self-care for myself whatsoever. People always used to say to me, like, this is not good enough, like, he's cheating on you with this person, that person. And I was just like, would never say a word. And I'd be like, but this is what I deserve. Like, I really thought that is what I deserved. I really thought that I was this really horrendous person who didn't deserve proper love. And I just think that's so sad. And it makes me so sad that there's women out there now repeating the same cycles, hoping for a different outcome, but they won't have a different outcome because they're not aware of themselves, you know. And I did split up from that person, but I ended up getting back. And again, it just absorbed all of my energy. And it was only till I had like therapy where, you know, it was like, okay, you're making this decision because of this and because of that. Like, you know, in school, you were always like shouted at, like you were never good enough, like you were this, you were that, you never sort of paying attention, whatever. So when that sort of went into my relationships, the reason why I felt safe in them was because it was familiar. And familiar doesn't always mean it's safe. It just means that you're familiar and that's something you resonate with from a younger child then. And that's why it feels comfortable to you. So that's obviously another reason, because again, I'm not just a physique coach. It's something that I help my girls with relationships, because sometimes they don't see these things for themselves. And how did I get here as a professional athlete now? Obviously, I had my IFBB Pro card this year, which obviously is the best feeling in the world. But I got into bodybuilding because it literally saved my life, honestly. Like people say, you know, God, you've been doing it for 7 years. You know, some people don't last that long. And the reason why I do it is because it was my lifeline. Before I found bodybuilding, I was literally binging alcohol all the time, doing other things as well. Had no friends really. And I started having thoughts of suicide again because, you know, I knew my vicious cycle. I was partying on the weekend, depressed. Weekend come, do the same again, depressed. And I, even though I was aware of this vicious cycle, I couldn't get out of it. And obviously ADHD, we have very addictive personalities, and we are more likely to be addicted to drugs, to be addicted to alcohol, gambling, whatever it is. I wasn't addicted to gambling, by the way. But we have more addicted personalities. Essentially, we're impulsive. We don't think of things properly before we do them. It's just like, yeah, doing that, you know, doesn't matter what the consequences are until it gets smashed in our face later on. And honestly, I remember seeing this one girl competing and I was like, wow, she looks incredible. The only downside was she was one of the people who was sleeping with my ex behind my back. So I was like, right, you either put your ego aside or you stay where you are. I don't know why I only had those two options. Mind, they're the only two options I clearly gave myself. But yeah, I was like, I want to do that. I was very underweight at this time, really skinny, probably like literally borderline anorexia because I wasn't eating. I was unwell all the time and things like that. So I was like, right, I need to go to the gym. Again, probably an impulsive decision because again, you know, that was the only two options I gave myself. So I thought, I'm just going to give this girl a message to see if I can come and train with her. Hopefully she doesn't find it awkward. Obviously it's awkward. I would have died if someone messaged me that. And I remember texting her being like, hi, I was just wondering if I could come to the gym with you, like cringing hell. And she probably felt like she had to because obviously she hurt me. So she probably thought, oh God, this is my way of apologising then. And I started in the gym with her. She was really lovely, by the way. She was really nice. She didn't know about me and my ex, so that's another reason why I obviously went there, because if she did know, it'd probably be a little bit different. And yeah, I went into the gym and I met her coach at the time. And I was like, yeah, I want to compete. Let's do it. Bear in mind, I've been in the gym for a few weeks, not even a month. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Put me in my first bodybuilding show within 6 weeks. I do not recommend that, by the way, guys. Like, I do not recommend that at all. Obviously, it was a lot more muscle now than it was back then. And I did it. I did the bodybuilding show, won the overall somehow. And yeah, that was the start of that journey. And I just remember how I felt there. My parents weren't really supportive of it, because that's another thing that I get all the time as well. Like, oh, my parents aren't supportive. Like, honestly, if it's something you want to do it, because at the end of the day, we all have our own goal in this life. So just make sure you actually enjoy it. Obviously, it was incredibly hard to do bodybuilding when both your parents did not want you to do it. I lived under their roof at that time. But I just kept doing it. And I just wanted to prove myself wrong that I could do it, because back then I live in a very small valley then where everyone knows each other's businesses and things like that. And everyone said to me I wouldn't be able to do it, and if I did do it, I would probably fall flat on my face. So when I did win the overall, I then had, it was a dead quiet show, like, it's nothing to be proud of. And I just remember thinking, all right then, let's go. I'm just going to keep going here. Did my second show, came dead last. Did my third show, came dead last. That wasn't fun. Obviously RSD, but it was different. I didn't feel rejected. I just had this fire inside me of, well, I reject myself every week, by me sort of drinking alcohol every week. I am literally neglecting myself. So I want to do something for me. And that's how my bodybuilding journey sort of kicked off. And I just kept getting better. I got with a new coach, and I just kept growing. And with that, my confidence grew with it. Like, even though people say it's like an isolated sport, I think, I'm not saying for neurodivergent women to obviously all start bodybuilding now, but for me, for me personally, it really helped with my confidence, because I had to stand on stage in front of loads of people. Backstage is the most overstimulating thing ever. You've got loads of girls get around you, getting ready, like, there's so much going on. And I was just like, wow, this is an experience, and yeah, I just loved every second of it. And every time I went, I realized that I was getting better at handling whatever was wrong with me. And I was someone who couldn't give eye contact whatsoever. And alongside the bodybuilding, I started doing photo shoots. And I remember my first photo shoot, wow, I was stiff as a board. I couldn't speak without stuttering. And fun fact, actually, that was AK who I did my photo shoot with. And she was the one who said to me that she thought that I was autistic all along, because we're very close. So I was like, oh, really? So it was just crazy to see someone else's view on me, especially when my parents were like, no, you're definitely not neurodivergent. You're fine. Everything's fine. But doing the photo shoots alongside that really pulled me out of my shell and really taught me how to grow mentally and physically and get my spark back then, because I got lost for a while. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, what my identity was. And for a second, my whole identity was bodybuilding. And obviously you don't want your whole identity just to be one thing. My whole identity now, it's not just bodybuilding. It's not just being neurospicy. Like, I'm so much more than that. But I noticed with neurodivergent women, we don't think much of ourselves, and it's really sad. So we just think that this is all I am. And you're like, no, you're not. You're so much more. Do you know what I mean? And I just think going on a journey of putting yourself out of your comfort zone is the way you grow, because you don't grow in comfort. Like, you really don't. Like, and you have to push yourself and challenge yourself as well, because you are accepting that you are going to stay as you are, because you're not going to just wake up one day and be like, I'm a different person now, let's go. It doesn't work like that. You do have to challenge yourself. And that's another reason as well where I wanted to diagnose this. I didn't think I was going to be as open about it as I am. And I felt a little bit embarrassed by it. And I know it's literally a superpower if you know how to use it and, correctly, and give yourself grace and be kind to yourself, that you realize that we are better than neurotypicals, shall we say? No, I wouldn't say that. No, but we have the ability to hyper focus and things like that, and go until we do burn out. And obviously by learning how to do it without burning out, like, it's incredible. So that's why I wanted to sort of go down this route, because I have so many athletes who start, and well, not even just start with me, just in general, who I meet along this journey, they thrive prep and then they fall off in off season or any other phase, and it's like, oh, well, I can't be anything great. And I'm like, I have to be pro now, so if I can do it, you can do it too. And it doesn't even need to be about competing. It can be anything. Like, what goals do you have in life that you want to absolutely smash? And I think that the most part is we don't believe in ourselves. So if we don't believe in ourselves, we're not going to achieve anything. Like, we're not going to. If you don't believe in yourself to do something and you sabotage yourself before you get there, you're not like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that is pretty much all of my journey from like start to finish. And I just, as I said, I've loved this journey. Well, I can say I love it now. I didn't love it at the time, obviously, sort of, being in school, being a weirdo, not really having friends, masking, because that's another thing, like, masking is exhausting. is so exhausting, and that's why I want to be more open on my page now, because a lot of people land on my page and they're like, oh, she's got her shit together, like, you know, she's Miss Perfect and whatever. Hence, I do not have my life together. Even like, obviously I'm recording this on Christmas week. It's Christmas week. Am I perfect? No. Am I a pro? Also, yes, you know, I am. But I understand what burns me out and what doesn't. And I would be a fraud if I said to all of my clients, you have to be 100% on it, like all of the time. I'm not. So how can I expect my clients to be? You know, the reason why they fall off is because they think they have to be perfect, because we chase perfectionism, and perfectionism isn't a thing. Honestly, it's an illusion that we create in our mind, and it's literally to guard ourselves, and it's because we're so used to being shouted at and, you know, not being good enough, that now everything needs to be perfect or our whole life is going to end. And obviously it's not going to end, but it feels like that to us, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I do want to keep doing these podcasts to help other people, not just with like fitness or whatever, but I will come on here and I'll show you how I cope with things as well, how I manage things, because I am not self-taught then, I've experience of coaching. I'm an experience-based coach where I've had to trial and error a lot of things to get to where I am now, and to cope with things. And for example, my struggles as well was off season, and how to do it in a way where I don't get burnt out, and even going out for social occasions and stuff like that. Like, I have to think about everything that goes on in my life, even down to filming this podcast, you know, not to burn myself out over Christmas, to make sure I could do this. Like, everything that you see on my social media that I'm doing looks probably seamless and flawless, but you've not seen how much planning I've had to go behind all of those things. And it doesn't drain me as much now because I'm used to it. I'm like more like this now, whereas before it was a chore. I was like, right, what am I doing tomorrow? You know, right, okay, you know, I'd set stuff up and then I'd be late, and I'd be late again, and I'd be late again. I'm never late anymore. Touch wood, touch wood, touch wood. I'm never late anymore. And that's just because of the tools I've had to learn along the way to become that. And I know for a lot of people, time blindness is consuming. It's annoying because you don't want to be late, and yet you show up late all the time, and you know, you're scared that people are going to judge you, that, oh, they think that I don't appreciate people's time and whatever, like you might have missed things and whatever else. So that's what the base of this podcast is going to be. I'm going to give you all the tips, all the tricks, and I'll always be relatable as well, because I think that's really important, to be relatable. People say being relatable doesn't mean anything, but it really does, because I'll show you the background of my life, and, you know, I'll speak to my clients about my life and how, you know, how I got from X to Y or whatever. And that's why they trust me, because they know that I haven't come from a perfect background. They know that I fully understand their brains, and I understand all of the trauma they've gone through and all the crappy decisions we've made because we've not been educated enough, or we've been impulsive as shit, and we've got ourselves into some trouble, you know, like, because again, I'm still not perfect, honestly. Like, my time management is great now, but I remember working in a job, this is ADHD, singing to another thing, but I remember working in Sky TV, and if you were on time every day, you'd get a free Sky box. I don't know if you got a Sky box, but they're not cheap, you know. I never had a Sky box because I was always late. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and it doesn't matter how much effort I put into not being late, I was always late. So I remember being frustrated, you know. So I'll get you that free Sky box if you do work for Sky. But no, I'll honestly, this is going to be a game changer, I think, the podcast. I wish I had this podcast a few years ago when I was struggling, because especially if you have fitness goals as well, and you really want to go into fitness goals of whatever it is, if it's high rocks, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's just to be better for your children. I know how frustrating it is not being able to adhere to something, and, you know, you go down the road of calling yourself lazy, calling yourself fat, calling yourself skinny, calling yourself stupid, thick. I've been there, I've done that, I've worn the t-shirt, so I'm here now, so you don't have to do that. But yeah, I've been really enjoyed talking to you all, and I really hope that you all loved my first podcast. and let me know if there's anything you want to hear from me next. Thank you girlies for listening. I hope you've taken something from this today and have helped you in some sort of way. I will be doing this twice a month, just because I know with ADHD brains, you know, we struggle to keep up on things. So I think doing it twice a month, it gives you all time to listen to the next one if you should want to. I'd love to know your thoughts on this podcast. Any feedback is very much welcomed. I worked on my RSD, so don't worry, I won't find it as if you're criticising me in any way. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one.